Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. The International Parking and Mobility Institute presents today's Shop Talk on impartial parking policies and curbside equity. My name is Kristen Vitello. I will be assisting Matt Doris, Joel Flores, Mark Renato, and Hal Daring in moderating today's Shop Talk. As a reminder, today's Shop Talk is being recorded. We will post the recording to IPMI's YouTube channel in a few days. I want to thank our sponsor, IPS Group, for their generous support. And before we start, I would like to go over just a few quick housekeeping rules for today. If you have a webcam and are comfortable doing so, we ask that you please turn on your camera. IPMI wants to see everyone's smiling faces, and we would just love for you to be engaging and be able to participate in today's call. As a reminder, we would also like our participants' lines to be muted. We will welcome any questions you may have, so please type your questions into the chat. All questions will be compiled and answered, time permitting, at the end of the presentation today. To access the chat feature, click the chat icon, and then type your question or comments and click send. Now I'm going to turn the audience over to Matt Doris. Matt?
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate it.
You're
Hi, I'm
welcome.
Matt. I manage the data science team at Conduit Transportation, and I want to thank everyone for attending this shop talk concerning impartial parking policies and curbside equity. I'm excited to moderate the discussion, and I'm pleased to introduce our public and private sector panelists. Unfortunately, Karen Coca won't be able to attend today, but her boss, Joel Flores, has graciously agreed to present. Joel is the first deputy director of the City of Chicago Department of Finance, and as such, he's had a guiding hand in implementing fine and fee reform to assist low-income motorists. And I've personally known Joel since my time in the public sector, and I know Chicago's lucky to have him and his team steward these initiatives. I'm also pleased to introduce Mark Renato. Mark is the Assistant General Manager of Field Operations and Administrative Services for LADOT. He's served in the public sector for more than 20 years, focusing on improving operations, and that includes parking citation processing. He's going to provide some insights into LA's efforts to promote fairness at the curb. And also joining us is Hal Daring. Hal is the president and CEO of Global Parking System. It's a certified minority-owned business enterprise that provides parking solutions for airports and municipalities. His team delivers curb lane services like parking enforcement and meter collections, and he's going to provide a private sector perspective on DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. So first, if you're participating today, it's because you already know that transportation has a history of being weaponized, as demonstrated by the separate but equal doctrine that was adopted by Plessy versus Ferguson, or the use of freeways and railways to redline Black and brown communities. This panel is important because they've demonstrated a commitment to really changing that narrative, and they're using transportation as a tool to promote fairness as opposed to denying it. And that really gets us to our collective charge, if you will. And if you allow me, I'm just going to read this directly because I think it's important to underscore. A city's curb lane management policies reflect its commitment to social equity by promoting impartiality and fairness to improve curbside access. Officials can also dismantle systemic barriers and prevent progression in working class communities. So we're all parking people, or curb lane / parking people. So most of our talking points today are going to concern cars in some way or another. We talk a lot about cars as city planners, and usually we think of cars as being problematic. They create congestion, they pollute, they snarl public transit, they create dangerous conditions for bicyclists and pedestrians. And while that's all true, it's not really the full story. Because despite the heavy burden of car ownership on disadvantaged households with limited discretionary income, cars are really critical to underserved communities. Employment, for instance, is often dependent on a car. Black and brown residents travel nearly 20% farther to get to work. Cars also provide access to educational opportunities, healthy dietary options when people are located in food deserts, and healthcare. Access to a vehicle, it's important to note, is more limited in Black and brown communities. So when we take away a car because of, say, parking tickets, we really risk creating a debt spiral. And that's made more permanent by the lack of access to work and educational opportunities that creates. And this risk is further exacerbated by the fact that citations often disproportionately are issued in disadvantaged communities. And many times, even the fine amounts and the penalties associated with that citations are higher too. So we're going to talk about a number of potential strategies, and I've grouped these, right or wrong, into 4 different categories: fairness, access, compliance, and then partner initiatives. And so in regards to fairness, Joel and I will discuss some ideas here. Time allowing, I'm hoping to talk a little bit about day fines. Access, or really rethinking mobility as a right. Compliance, Mark is going to provide some details concerning some really neat programs in LA. And partner initiatives. And I'm really looking forward to Hal's discussion on these points. So before I turn it over to our first speaker, I'm going to talk just a little bit about enforcement prioritization and what that means for equity. So Chicago's taken a multi-pronged approach to improving equity, and Joel's going to walk you through that. But one step, an early step, was re-examining the distribution of enforcement personnel in the city. In the past, Chicago was split into enforcement zones, and every single zone got worked every single day, regardless of the need for enforcement. And that led to some over-enforcement, especially of licensing infractions, where someone could be issued a citation day after day after day. So the city created new enforcement zones, and they were based on road miles and the likelihood of specific citations, really to the exclusion of those infractions like licensing violations that hurt marginalized communities. So now enforcement's prioritized really in metered parking zones and neighborhood business areas, with more occasional randomized enforcement in underserved communities. So the impact of that has been pretty significant. There has been a reduction in the number of city sticker violations as a percentage of all violations in underserved communities, as well as expired plate violations. The average fine amounts are finally starting to go down in those neighborhoods as well, which is an important story. And in Black and brown majority communities, citations are actually down. There's been a reduction of about 9% as a result of this. So again, this is just one aspect of Chicago's efforts to reform fines. Joel Flores is now going to discuss other steps that the city of Chicago has taken to really improve curb lane equity.
Thanks, Matt. So when Mayor Lightfoot took office back in 2019, one of her priorities was to tackle regressive fines and fees. And with that came a long list of reforms that started in 2019 and continued to this day. Before implementing all of these bullet points, there were discussions with community advocates, aldermanic offices, other stakeholders, and it required many ordinance changes. So as part of our annual budgetary process, we would include changes to ordinances so that everything would get approved as part of city council introduction with the budget. So after everything was approved, then that came the fun part about making the technical changes, the process changes, the marketing, the getting out to the neighborhoods and letting people know what are we doing and why are we doing it. So in 2019, we looked at the city sticker ticket violation. And to those who are not familiar with it, it's a sticker that goes on the windshield of your vehicle. If you don't have it, it's $200. And if you have an expired one or you don't have one, then it can double up to $400. So in 2019, we reduced the doubling of that city sticker violation from $200 to $50. So now it doesn't double, it goes up to $250. We extended the grace period for city sticker violations. So today is May 4th. If you're expired April 30th, you would not be held accountable for that city sticker violation until after the 15th. In addition, we did a city sticker debt relief program where we allowed motorists to come into compliance within the last quarter of 2019, apply for debt relief, and we would dismiss up to all city sticker violations, depending on what income they had or what hardships they had. That resulted in us dismissing over $11 million in city sticker ticket violations. We also stopped same day and consecutive day city sticker ticket violations. So oftentimes, motorists will get one ticket today. Maybe they forgot to purchase their city sticker. The same, cop or same parking enforcement agent will ticket the same vehicle the next day. We stopped that in 2019. We made technical changes to our database that if it did occur, we would automatically dismiss those tickets. In addition, we also did changes to driver's license suspensions over the life of the 2019 till now. We stopped suspending for parking and compliance tickets, and then we stopped suspending for camera enforcement. Moving forward to the pandemic year in 2020, we concentrated on efforts on vehicle impoundment issues. Those are cases where a vehicle can be impounded for like drugs or firearms. So what we did for vehicle impoundment, we reduced the fine amounts, we capped storage amounts at $1,000, and we made changes to violations that used to be impoundable to no longer being impoundable. In addition, we also stopped enforcement during the pandemic. We stopped booting. We were only concentrating efforts on safety-related violations. Moving forward to 2021, throughout the entire 2019 through 2021, we've made drastic changes to our online platform for online payment plans. We allow motorists to get on payment plans before ticket doubles, after ticket doubles, and even if they're referred out to an outside collection agency, we would unrefer those tickets and put them onto a city plan, saving the motorists approximately 22% in collection fees. The last item is kiosks. So we currently have about 72 kiosks throughout the entire city of Chicago. Looks similar to a cash station, but it's not money taken out, it's money given to us. So you're able to pay your parking ticket, licenses, taxes, etc. at 24/7 at any of our police stations, and we're at most of our libraries. Next slide, Ben. Looking at 2022, this is really exciting because now motorists are able to get on an online payment plan if their vehicle has been booted. Prior to 2019, they would have to come in person, they would have to speak to a law firm or collection agency, and they would have to pay 22%. We made changes to our boot sticker. We added a QR code. The QR code takes them directly to the right hand of the screen, which is our website. It allows them to get on an online payment plan. They use the QR code, enter a payment plan within 24 hours. The vehicle, the boot is released. We started this April 1st. To date, we have over 1,600 motorists who have taken advantage in the last month. I don't have the exact percentage as to who continues to come in person. Hopefully we can get that soon. Next slide. Also in 2022, we introduced ClearPath Relief Pilot Program. It is a 3-component relief program. The first 2 are income-based. It is debt relief. It is fine waiver. And the last one is a fix-it defense. What you're seeing on the screen now is a Palm Card that we created, that we distributed to all our public-facing facilities, payment centers, aldermanic offices. The benefits are, we look at the motorist's last 3 years of parking tickets. we reduce them to the original fine level. We put them on a 12-month payment plan. If they complete that payment plan, anything that is older than 3 years, we automatically dismiss that. We allow them to get to default. So if they default, we allow them to get back onto the program. Once they apply, once they get approved, any future tickets start off at 50% of the fine value, not at 100. We hold it at 50%. We do not charge an additional penalty until after the program sunsets. The word pilot is on the Palm Card because this sunsets 12/31/2023. We do exclude expired meters, just so everyone knows. And in order to apply, you have to have an email address. You have to have debt, because we're not going to approve you for debt relief if you don't have any debt. Someone that is a current participant in our utility billing debt relief, which is related to property ownership, they do not have to qualify for income since they've already are currently a UBR participant. We would automatically approve them and get them onto the program. Next slide, Matt. Again, the CPR debt relief and fine waiver is income-based. Looking at the chart to the right, it is a 30-day look back to income. It is not based on your annual income. Like stuff can happen. Maybe you're making 6 figures and all of a sudden you're unemployed. We only look at the last 30 days of income. We started this on April 1st, sorry. We have over 40,000 applications that have come in. We've already dismissed 3 million, and we have 3 million on hold or set aside so that when the motorist completes the 12-month plan, that additional 3 million will get dismissed. That number is changing every day. We have applications coming in to the thousands per week right now. Next slide. Next is the fix-it defense. So this is open to everyone, not income-based. You get a city sticker violation or a expired plate sticker violation. We allow you to come into compliance, contest the ticket, and we will dismiss that ticket. We also included a 30-day look back and a 30-day forward, because oftentimes motorists will purchase their city sticker today, but it's not going to come into the mail within the next week or so. And oftentimes, the parking enforcement aide or the police officer will continue ticketing that vehicle. So we are doing a 30-day look back and a 30-day forward looking to automatically dismiss tickets for that particular vehicle. It's one vehicle per person. Looking at the trends on the left-hand side of the Palm Card, 44.5% of city sticker fines are issued in communities 70% or more Black and Brown. 27% of those are expired plate violations. If we look at all of the fines and fees reforms, excluding the water side, because that's property ownership, those associated with motorists, we've saved customers $178 million since 2019. And that number is going to grow as the care path ages out. Last slide, Matt. So what we also did, as part of our technical enhancements to our handheld devices, we were able to print off a supplemental notice. On the left-hand side is a notice that tells the motorist, hey, you got a ticket. Just to let you know, you are boot eligible. Use this QR code. Let's get you on a payment plan so that we cannot boot your vehicle. We've seen that as we're giving this supplemental notice out, that 47% of the recipients are either getting on a payment plan or paying in full. The notices to the right are the current notices that we're generating based off of the Clear Path notice, because we need to market this, right? So we're using buses, we're using those billboards out on the expressways. And as people are getting violations, we're notifying them that, hey, you may be eligible for this program. Or if it's a compliance ticket, hey, you may be able to get this one dismissed if you come into compliance. A lot has happened since 2019 to 2021. It's exciting stuff. It's a lot of work, but I do feel that we are helping all of our motorists as well as residents, because there's programs on here that are not associated with motorists that also fall under DOF. Thanks, Matt.
That is great, Joel. Thank you very much. And before I introduce Mark, I just want to mention a little bit that LA is doing in regards to improving access for disadvantaged motorists by reconsidering how they price the curb. So people are probably familiar with LA Express Park, and it's a project that addresses congestion by repricing hourly rates. Initially, downtown rates were reduced at 60% of the meters and increased at about 27%. And that meant an hourly average rate reduction of about 11%. And what that means for customers is that if I'm parking before LA Express Park, if I'm parking and trying to find a space, I'm only finding a cheap parking space 40% of the time within a block of my destination. You see that represented in the white parking spaces in the bottom left-hand corner. But now if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, you see many more of those white spaces. And now when I'm trying to park and find a space, I can find cheaper parking 90% of the time within a block of my destination. So it's another broader way of looking at how we can improve curb lane and social equity. That's just one improvement by LADOT, and Mark Renato is going to share more with us.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, IPMI, for giving me the opportunity to highlight some of LA's citation payment programs. As we know, LA is fully diverse across all demographics, but there's one data set that we have in common with every city across the nation, that's socioeconomic diversity. We understand that receiving a citation can cut deep in our wallets, but it especially cuts deep for our lowest income earners and even those who are experiencing homelessness. And so to alleviate the burden, we focused our citation payment program to include many payment options that allowed us to adjust to our motorist needs rather than forcing our motorists to adjust to whatever we imposed. We share the same mindset with Joel in Chicago that we need to be more flexible with our payment options. And we've seen participation grow, especially within our payment rates. So one of our social equity programs is the Community Assistance Parking Program. Here in LA, we use the acronym CAP, but we didn't want to confuse it with the CAP designation through IPMI. So at least you'll remember it as CAP. So this program focuses on our, I lost the page. This program focuses on our dense homeless population. And we have many vehicle dwellers that reside here in the city of LA. And so what this program aims is, those folks that are experiencing homelessness have an opportunity to pay their citations and avoid losing their vehicle to impound. And so what we've done is we converted what's owed on the citation payment into community service. And it's not just typical community service where you're performing laborious work, sweeping roads or working on the side of the freeway. We've actually engaged partners in the nonprofit sector to allow opportunities for our homeless individuals to take part in workforce management, to take part in attending seminars that will help them get out of their situation. And so a lot of that time spent sitting in those seminars qualify as hours that are dedicated to pay off their citation. So we've created a chart where it's an amount owed on their citation and it equals a number of hours that they can work off. I mean, it can include waiting in the line to get their driver's license, whatever it is that's going to help them improve their situation, we will consider that. And as long as it gets signed off by a case manager, then we will accept that. So to date, the program has been in operation approximately 6 years, and we have nearly $1 million dismissed, through the program, about $150,000 that are currently enrolled. And so we've seen a lot of huge successes with this program, and we continue to get people to contact us as well as other agencies to see how we're rolling this out and possibly rolling it out to other communities that are near us. Next slide. All right, so the CAP program, or Community Assistance Parking Program, is just one of our payment options. We consider it a payment option since it's an avenue to really address their citation debt. But we also have other installment payment plans that we've made more flexible throughout the years. And in 2018, you know, we were luckily able to be aligned with the state in imposing some critical changes to our payment plan. Prior, we had your traditional general installment payment plan, which we see as number one, which is, you know, you sign up for your payment plan, pay 60% down, and then just pay in 2 subsequent months. Our payment rate was really low, 40%. And prior to 60%, we had set it at 40%. And what the mindset prior was like, let's just try to get as much as we can, right? Let's just try to get as much as we can. But what we saw was that these folks that were defaulting were then getting hit hard when they tried to renew their registration when they go to the DMV. And so what these extended installment payment plans does is allow individuals to sign up for payment plans at any point in the life cycle of the citation. And so, and also it extends payment plans across 24 months with a minimum payment of $20 a month. So your down payment is only $20 a month. The monthly income is 150% above the current poverty guideline. And, you know, we've seen dramatic increases in payment rate. It's doubled, more than doubled. Now we have 85% that are actually coming through on their payment plans. It's alleviated their burden. They feel like they didn't have to pay hundreds of dollars with a 60% down payment, and just paying $20 can put them on a pathway to really fulfill their debt obligations. And so we think that this has been a winner for the city of LA, and we are excited to see that it continues to grow. So, you know, just like many other cities across the country, we've experienced, you know, some serious burdens during the pandemic. And so when we, during the pandemic, a lot of our citizens were also experiencing those effects. So we delayed booting, just as mentioned in Chicago. We also held citation, moratorium on citations for particular violations, but we did continue on safety violations, very similar to Chicago. We also did a parking citation amnesty for citations that were older than 3 years. And what we did there was we eliminated all the penalties. So approximately $250,000 was waived through that effort. The other key initiative was the unemployment citation amnesty program. So a lot of folks were laid off. Various sectors were impacted by the pandemic. So this is an area where we wanted to focus and give an opportunity for those that, you know, were getting citations but just didn't have a job. So we, based on proof of unemployment, 11,000 citations were enrolled, and we waived $250,000 worth of penalties. And then there was early pay LA. We reduced fines if paid within 48 hours by $20. The participation rate was 13%, and this was really a good program that was rolled out. However, we didn't see significant gains with this program. Prior to the pandemic, we had about 10 or 11% who were just good at paying their citations within 48 hours. They're very, you know, they're very diligent. And so what we saw was this program increased by about 2%. So after we evaluated whether we should continue it on, we didn't feel that we had that significant increase of participation. And so we went ahead and sunsetted the program. So, you know, these are just variety of payment plans. We're always open and flexible to expanding them. One particular program is a universal payment plan. A universal payment plan that could expand to all motorists regardless of income. And so we're working out particulars to see how we could roll that out. I think one of the driving decisions to implement these programs is what digital infrastructure do you have in place to be able to roll these out? And so when we sat back and we were brainstorming, okay, what kind of initiatives can we roll out that will help folks? We partnered with our citation processing servicer and Conduent, and we said, what can we roll out? What are our limitations of the system, and what can we do? So just partnering, understanding that, and what we can roll out, and then also engaging with our community stakeholders. We were able to release these programs. So we're very proud that they've been successful, and that we continue to be open-minded about expanding them.
So thank you very much for that, Mark. With that, I'd like to introduce Hal Daring, and Hal's going to discuss how the private sector is working to improve curbside inclusion and diversity. So Hal?
Yeah, thank you, Matt, and thank you to IPMI for having us as part of the panel. Basically, Global Parking System of Indiana Incorporated, we are a private-owned company, and we handle transportation and specializing in parking and asset management for full-service parking operations, airports, city, state, federal, valet, to parking meter enforcement, to garage, and so on. We're certified ACDBE, MBE in over 18 states throughout the U.S. right now. And our programs that we are involved with, we work with the local economic development leaders, community activists, political leaders, and to gain a positive exposure for those cities and communities that we engage in trying to get different locations. And we've won numerous awards along the way for our success, being in business for over 21 years. Next slide, Matt. So Global Parking supports the collection of point counting team of Denison Global Parking in Indianapolis, Indiana. This long-term philanthropy beneficiaries with Street Reach Indy is a great program, guys. We've had issues with homeless in the city of Indianapolis for many, many years, and this is the only program that's been successful. Nearly raised $50,000 with partners through direct and in-kind donations. As of September of 2017, over $300,000 provide assistance to over 700 people that experience homeless. I know we spoke about the homeless earlier. This really directly affects how we can get in-kind donations from everyone that want to participate. And we've been recognized with IPMI for adoptive reuse for 2020. So what we basically do, we have areas around this downtown location that these parking meters that you see on the photo there on the slide, where individual can donate funds for the homeless. Our next slide, Matt. So basically, we like to do is for social equity to drive our decisions is we recruit high-level certified firms through outreach programs, job fairs. We work directly with the Indiana Black Expo. We've been very successful with those guys. The Indiana Chamber of Commerce, the Black Chamber of Commerce has helped tremendously. And as a minority-owned business, we want to make sure that we're engaged in the proper way by having qualified, certified firms and corporate level individuals help and assist us in every way possible. So we look for senior and executive positions for our management team. We try to match what our clients are looking for as far as the level of education to experience to success and so on. We usually exceed the racial demographics of the areas in which we provide our services. Then we team up again with outreach programs to gain access to high-level management candidates, and we take advantage of different training advantages we provide. We understand that if we don't train our employees correctly, then we're looking for failure. So we want to make sure that our employees and our management staff are well prepared and ready to do the job and keep our success story running. Next slide, Matt. So as a minority-owned firm, we really want to do as much as we can through job fairs, outreach programs, certified firms that can help us throughout the talent pipeline. And then as far as our community partnerships, we work with local clergy, churches, radio hosts. I was guest on several radio shows that implemented how the community can be engaged with minority, women, veteran, disadvantaged firms. And that information that's disseminated properly really goes a long way, because a lot of people don't understand and won't understand how a minority-owned firm can come into a situation and actually benefit not only the city, but also the minority community. And we've been able to be really successful in that regard. And once again, we spoke about the local chamber and Black Chamber of Commerce and so on. And so how we target our accountability is we share our racial and ethnic representation at all levels. So there's transparency. And throughout the different areas that we are engaged or have business in, that really is a real need. You have to be transparent as making sure that you're a legitimate minority or disadvantaged owned business enterprise. And because if you're not, then that could really turn negative quickly. In our training and workshops, we have been asked and been somewhat successful with second chance organizations when there's a nonviolent felony, etc. Some of the banking, consultation, and other things, we move beyond unbanked situations, and we have consultants that will help with taxes, business planning, and so on. And our company is like a model for some of these platforms and programs, because we've been in business, like I said, for over 21 years. And so they come to us and say, how can you guys show us what to do? Next slide. Go ahead, Matt.
So thanks a lot, Hal. I appreciate that. There were just a couple other ideas to toss out there. I think we have enough time to talk about these before we go to Q&A. But first, I want to just mention the idea of optimizing fines. Something we're seeing cities do right now is to improve equity very quickly is to review their fine structures and to kind of determine where they fit within their the range of seriousness, and then tie the fine to that level of egregiousness. But we also need to be cognizant of, I think, fines, the deterrent impact on a per customer basis. And I think that affords us with opportunities to improve equity further, as fines for the same infraction will impact different communities in different ways. A fine for street cleaning in a wealthy neighborhood is going to have less deterrent value than the same fine amount in a disadvantaged neighborhood. Further, violations for the same infraction present different levels of social harm, depending on the time of day that they're issued, or even based on the day of the week that they're issued. So I think there's a data-driven approach to implementing fines, or even day fines, right? This idea that allows us to adjust fines based on discretionary income in a community, basically looking at the median household income, less housing, energy, and other non-discretionary expenses. And I think we can look at the neighborhood demographics to set a lot of these. And that especially works with fines that are primarily issued within or to residents of a neighborhood, like street cleaning. May not work for all violation types, but I think we can apply other approaches to those, like linking meter violations to demand pricing, or Chicago and LA have noted how they waive fines if a motorist shows compliance, right? Those are really interesting ways to attack this issue as well and get to what you're looking for with day fines. Another intriguing area that I think requires further study is the relationship between hearing decisions and income. There can be a lot of inequity in how parking citation hearings are adjudicated. We're finding that wealthier people are more likely to be found not liable than others. And so I think this is an area of ripe for reform, and I predict this is going to be something that we're going to see more in the press about. And then finally, can we get people out of the hearing trajectory, period, right? Is there a way to make it easier for underserved communities to comply with licensing and permitting requirements, maybe allowing that to happen virtually? if we shift away from a failure to display to more of a failure to purchase mindset, that really negates the potential of erroneous tickets or any tickets that might get issued while someone's waiting for a permit, right? If you look at some of these queues across various cities for residential permits or city stickers or what have you, sometimes it takes weeks to get them. And during that period of time, motorists are getting ticketed. Disadvantaged motorists, unfortunately, are worse off because they have less access to hearing facilities and are more likely to be found liable. So with that, I just want to thank all the speakers from the city of Chicago and Los Angeles, as well as Global Parking System. Obviously, I want to thank IPMI for hosting this event. I think this is a really critical issue. And I want to thank everyone for attending, and I look forward to hearing your ideas on how we can further improve curb lane social equity.
Thank you very much, Matt. I really appreciate it. We do have a few questions. I'll go ahead and read them to you now. The first question is for Joel. How did you identify which equity programs to focus on? Did you get input from communities on the biggest issues, or did you choose another way?
Assuming the U isn't specifically to Joe, it's the city of Chicago, right? It wasn't my decision to select a particular type of violation. We looked at data, community stakeholders, aldermanic offices, motorists. The compliance ticket is the one that was more impactful to motorists. So that was the one that we concentrated on. The ability to suspend somebody's driver's license, that's what we also concentrated on. We used technology. We lowered the threshold for our payment plans. Before it used to be 25% down or 50% down. It's as low as $25 right now to get on an online payment plan. So those were the changes that were made.
Thank you, Joel. I have one other question for you. Is Chicago issuing one warning before booting vehicles?
So the motorist receives a series of notices from the moment they receive the violation. They get the ticket on their windshield, they get the notice of violation, and if their boot becomes eligible, then in the mail they'll receive their seizure notice. During the 2020 pandemic, we started issuing a boot warning notice, which is not mailed. So instead of the booter going out and placing the booter went out and placed a sticker on there that specifically said your vehicle is boot eligible, but get on the payment plan to get yourself off of that boot. So that was something that we implemented in 2020, and occasionally we'll start doing that depending on long weekends or what have you.
Thank you. This question is for Matt. Matt, if the homeless population does not pay the fee and does not take advantage of CARP, do you tow their vehicles?
I think that maybe the question is for me.
Yes.
In this program.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, we do everything we can to make sure that our participants don't drop out. Because there is the risk that they run by not completing the program, their vehicle may become eligible, right, to be impounded. And so we have a team of folks that reach out to them, let them know when deadlines are coming up, and to make sure that we have the proper paperwork in order to help them fulfill the program. But yes, there is a risk. There's also a risk with any individual that may park in front of a fire hydrant or on a curb, during high traffic periods, right? So there's always that risk for being impounded. Our program focuses on the citations themselves. So if the vehicle does get impounded and they contact us, we can enroll their citation. And typically to get their vehicle out of impound, their citations would have to be paid. And so by enrolling them into the CAP program, it's a payment option. And so it shows that they're enrolled and that their citations are being taken care of. And in that case, then they can go ahead and get their vehicle released. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Mark. And this question is for all panelists. Can you talk about the internal discussions you had to convince leadership to adopt these programs and changes that would result in lower revenue for your city? Was it a struggle to convince leadership to give up this money in a time that you are already strapped for revenue?
I can start that one. Okay.
Go ahead, Joel.
Go ahead. I will second.
Okay. Well, we try to stay away from the idea that we're trying to generate revenue off of citations. We focus more on compliance, right, and how that has an effect on our curbs. So when the question, they want to know how much revenue we're going to get at the end of the year, but we try to stay away from quotas, from enforcement officers trying to issue so many citations for generating revenue. And so when in our city, whenever there's opportunities to give back or to provide relief, our city leadership is always on board with that. Now, one of the programs that I mentioned, which was the Early Pay LA, that reduced parking fines by $20 if you paid it early. I mean, we internally in our analysis, we saw that it was affecting revenue, and there wasn't a major impact on providing that relief that we thought it would. And so our recommendation was to discontinue and sunset that particular program, because our analysis showed it wasn't having that much of an impact on revenue, because 10% we're going to pay it anyway, and it was rewarding those that were going to pay it anyway.
Joel, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with everything what LA has said. In addition, the majority of our reforms came from leadership. So we didn't need to convince leadership. It came from leadership. Also, many of them are driven by state statutes. So if the state changes, then we're forced to change. There wasn't, we didn't have to convince leadership. It was more, how do we get this implemented? What are the technical changes that we need to do? How do we get out to neighborhoods and let them know that, hey, this is coming, apply for debt relief. You no longer have to go to a collection agency or law firm and pay an additional 22%. So a lot is more on communicating out to the public rather than leadership.
If I could just dovetail into what Joel said, I'm finding now with the use of data that you're able to really provide some transparency into these decisions as well, right? It's not, there's not a lot of guesswork like there was before. And these don't have to necessarily be revenue negative decisions. You look at something like LA Express Park, right? That was revenue neutral, right? And so even though you're reducing rates at most of the parking meters, you're still, generating revenue while providing access. And then you look at the default rates in LA, right? The 15% default rate is fantastic for that program. So the fact that it's so low still means that maybe you're pushing revenue to the right a little bit, but it's still coming in, and you've got people who are compliant and keeping their cars. And there's that whole aspect of this that you have to factor in, right? The people who are staying employed or can continue to go to school because they get to keep their vehicle, and the revenue that they are putting back into the system because of that.
Thank you, Matt. So I do have one last question, but it starts off with a kudos to Matt, Mark, Joel, and Hal. Thank you for all your great work on this important issue. So much for us to use and to borrow. Seattle is scheduled to resume booting this fall. We are considering options to communicate to those in scofflaw before booting restarts, to give them every opportunity to pay for prior citations or enter into payment programs to avoid booting. Have you done direct communication with all those in scofflaw, for example, via hard copy mail notice or earned media or other? And this was the question directed to Mark and Joel, please.
So I can start off with that one. Like I previously stated, we did a boot warning notice, and as part of the supplemental ticket that gets printed from a violation, we're notifying the vendor that their vehicle is boot eligible. As far as using the media, we did not use the media when we turned on booting in 2020. We updated our website. We started with the supplemental noticing from our handheld device, and we started doing boot warning notices for a couple of weeks in both the north side and south side of Chicago.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, we definitely had press releasers, media, postings, right, on news outlets, etc. I like the idea that's being done in Chicago with the warning notice, but when the citation is issued, we do have language on our citation on the backside that says if you're a scofflaw vehicle, then you run the risk of an impound. So we do have language there, and also just the mailers that go out when the citation is issued. So those were the outreach efforts. I mean, the city of LA is huge, so we took a look at, do we post flyers? Do we add another warning memo? Do we fix those to vehicles? But the costs were going to be really high, right? If we're going to be reaching out to thousands and thousands of motorists.
I just want to say something that really, in my discussions with Hal, that I thought was really important was just using, I'm sorry, that is my dog snoring, using churches and other groups to do some of that outreach. Seems like such a smart idea now that I've talked to Hal, and that's something that we're definitely going to recommend to people as we try to assist with these types of programs.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. We've been very successful with clergy in local areas, and also the radio talk show hosts that the brown and black communities listen to on a daily basis for helpful and accurate information. That carries a lot of weight as well, because a lot of these cities and communities are unaware of certain programs, and they are in tune every day at the same time to listen to their favorite radio host. And so that is both those two areas we've been very successful with.
Excellent. We have two more questions. I believe this one is for Joel. It appears that you do not have the ability to print an online receipt and update the database real time. Did I hear this correctly?
What kind of receipt?
I don't have that information.
If it's a payment, it's real time.
Okay. And then lastly, are these outreach efforts being done in other language or non-traditional media efforts? Outlets.
In our case, we have social media where we release information out to. But yes, we do have multi-language. It's focused on Spanish and English, so we do reach out to the Spanish language TV networks, as well as the local broadcasting networks in English.
Thanks, Mark.
Mayor's office, public relations here in the city of Chicago. We get all our palm cards translated in multiple languages. Spanish radio, billboards, English and Spanish. Yeah.
I mean, we do have services for all languages. And so if there's a request or for translation services, we will definitely provide that.
Perfect. That concludes our questions, Matt. Could we go to the next slide?
Absolutely. Oh.
Awesome. So we hope you join us again. On September 7th, we'll be having another shop talk. This will be on innovations at the curb, and that will be moderated by Robert Farron Cap. So we hope that you can join us for that as well. And lastly, registration is now open for IPMI's Parking and Mobility Conference and Expo. The conference will be held in New Orleans from July 24th through the 27th, and we encourage everyone to register today and hope to see you there. Lastly, I just want to thank you all for your membership, your support, your willingness to jump in and connect, and your dedication to our industry. And I'd like to give a huge shout out to Matt Darst, Joel Flores, Mark Renato, and Hal Daring for facilitating today's shop talk. You did an amazing job. Thank you very, very much. And now that will be the end of our shop talk. Thank you all for attending, and you may now disconnect. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.